Bacanora is a regional mezcal made in the state of Sonora, Mexico. Like all mezcal, the spirit is distilled from the roasted heart of the agave plant. Bacanora is 100% agave and distilled twice. Because the liquor falls outside of the denomination of origin for mezcal, it cannot be labeled as such. However, locals may refer to Bacanora as mezcal or vino. In 2000, Bacanora received its own denomination of origin, a geographical indicator that gives the spirit protected status. This means that Bacanora can only be legally produced and bottled in the eastern Sonora region. Although various types of wild agave and even sotol have been used to make Bacanora over the years, the spirit is now officially defined as distillation of the local varieties, of which may be referred to as Pacifica, Yaquiana, and Bacanora. Like tequila, this mezcal takes its name from the locus of production, the town of Bacanora. Bacanora means reed-covered slope. Early production processes evolved from indigenous methods of baking agave for food and fermented beverages, which were a major source of sustenance. Cultivation of agave in the region dates back to at least 1000 CE. Thanks to the online website Mezcalitas, and this article was brought to us by Felicia Rogers. It was published on June 3rd, 2024. Cheers! Hello, ladies and gentlemen, craft spirit enthusiasts, and those interested in the intoxicating world of craft distilleries, cideries, meaderies, wineries, and the occasional foray into breweries. It's Rich Shane, and welcome to Fermented Adventure, the podcast, where we bring you the fascinating people that are making the mash, fermenting, distilling, bottling, pouring, and delivering to you some of the finest libations in the world. Before we get started, here are a few housekeeping items. Thank you for bringing the podcast into wherever you are, and whatever you're doing, we truly are grateful that you have chosen to listen and make us part of your day. It would mean the world to us if you left a 5-star review. This helps us climb in the rankings, and it makes it easier for others to find us. Don't hesitate to leave us your comments as well. If the podcast didn't meet your expectations, tell us why. We're always striving to improve. You can find us at fermentedadventure.com. We are on Instagram and Facebook as Fermented Adventure. Email us at fermentedadventure@gmail.com. All right, FA Nation, let's meet our guest. He's Rodrigo Bojorquez. I'm Rich Shane. This is Fermented Adventure, the podcast. Rodrigo, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you for having me.
Rodrigo, we met and we were introduced to Kilinga Bacanora at Bar Conv in Brooklyn. For those that are not familiar, what is Kilinga Bacanora and how did it all get started?
Well, Bacanora is the spirit, the regional spirit for the state of Sonora. It's really a mezcal variety per se, like tequila is, and also mezcal is. They're all mezcals because the word mezcal pretends to something that is made with cooked agave or roasted agave, and so it's the varietal of mezcal that it's original from the state of Sonora. For those of you who are not familiar or very familiar with Mexico, we are in the northwestern part of Mexico, and we are. We have a coastline with the Sea of Cortez, and that's important for Kilinga because it gets the land that we have the agave in gets a lot of oceanic breeze when the night comes in and a lot of that breeze blows into the fields. Kilinga is my mother's nickname. And this product is named after her. And how I got started. Well, I was sort of an agave aficionado per se, and but I wasn't particularly fond of Bacanora. Some of the expressions are very powerful on the alcoholic side, and the very powerful on the smoky notes and the the nose as well. And so I didn't particularly enjoy that expression of Bacanora that I used to know. And then it came to a point that I got invited to a barbecue in a friend's house in Hermosillo, and we had an after lunch drink, and he offered me Bacanora. He convinced me to try it again, and that one was quite enjoyable. And I had some agaves planted already at the ranch, so I got the idea into my head to learn how to distill Bacanora. So it was a process of a lot of trial and error, and then I went to Oaxaca for some time to learn how to distill mezcal, and I came back and redesigned my stills and how everything worked there at the distillery, and it came to a point that I came about to producing this beautiful thing.
You spoke about the origins of being an agave aficionado.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's Mexico, and I certainly get and understand the immersion in agave. But what was it that drew that to you that said, I want to learn more about this, I want to drink more of these spirits, and I really want to immerse myself into all that is the agave spirit?
It's been since I started drinking, it's always been appealing to my palate. It's I guess it's something that that I was born with, because I have always had a preference for agave spirits rather than grain spirits or other, and I like that it has it's born with its own character, and you don't have to put it through a process of aging in barrels or anything like that in order to get that character. So it was always interesting to me, and first of all how it tasted, and once it came to a point that I understood how it was made. I made it my quest to find out what different nuances and notes and different things the agave that grows in our fields could give me. And that's how I came about in creating these 3 SKUs. And it's always been a quest to understand it better, understand the agave better, its biology and where it grows, in order to have it express itself the best it can, or to the best of my understanding, and express it and have it sort of translate its story into your palate.
Pardon the interruption. Thank you so much for listening to Fermented Adventure, the podcast. Could you do us a favor? Hit that follow button. It makes it easier for others to find us, and it helps us climb in the rankings. Take a screenshot of the podcast, post it, tag us, and let everyone know that you listen to the Fermented Adventure podcast. Now, back to our podcast. You shared about you have been growing or had been growing agave at your ranch, and through trial and error and creating this Bacanora that is your signature style for you, the signature palate. Talk about some of the trial and error and the growth and expansion. I'm quite certain you just don't have a couple of agave plants anymore. I'm sure the ranch is full of them now.
I started back in 2009 growing agave. I had to learn that trade too. Agave fields here in Sonora weren't a thing at all. I was probably the first or the second person, the second person that had an agave, that planted an agave field here. And I was probably viewed by others like I was crazy at the moment. But that time to learn I have a ranching and farming background. So I really took my time to understand the plant, how it grows, what it likes, what it doesn't, and where in which conditions it does better here in the state, because we have very extreme weather conditions. It's either really cold during the winter or in very hot during the summer, and then other years it's hot and humid, and other years it's hot and really dry, and then it doesn't. Then during the winter we don't have much cold weather. It stays very mild, so it's always changing, and that's a challenge for the plant. It's a challenge for me as an agave grower as well, and also it's a challenge to ferment when those varying conditions all the time. You have to get used to you have to get used to the different conditions, because the yeast when it's fermenting it starts behaving differently. So we have to over time, trial and error, we had to adapt and learn to keep those yeast colonies alive. So it's been a long learning process, a fun one, and but it's been quite a bit since I've been having distilling, and then it didn't come out so well, and then the fermentation would die off, and I was like trying to pull my hair out of my head, because that was really frustrating at the beginning until I got the hang of it.
Those people that think or called you crazy, are they the ones that show up at the opening of your ranch and ask for bottles of your Bacanora?
Some of them. No, it's because they found it weird that I was planting agave rather than other crops like, I don't know, beans, corn, or something that sells really like annually, and gives you a cash flow. That's what their angle was at the moment. But yeah, it started as a small plantation. Now we have 176 hectares. I don't know how many acres that is. I'm not very
You and me
familiar with
both.
the numbers.
I have no idea the hectares.
No, a hectare is 10,000 square meters. So it's several 100,000 plants now.
Right from the beginning, you needed to set up. You talked about fermentation and you talked about distillation. You needed to set all this up, and it sounds to me like this is something you have knowledge of, but not experience. How did you go about setting up all that you needed to make this agave into Bacanora?
Oh, asking a lot of questions. I got to read a lot on the basic principles of distilling and fermenting as well. I put in the time on educating myself, if you will, on the subject, and when I went and took some time and did a master mezcalier course in Oaxaca, and I sort of the things that I wouldn't find in books or articles online, I learned from different gentlemen down there that are masters of the craft and do beautiful things, and I learned about the differences, about the different milling processes. Why I came about to knowing why they use a taona instead of like an electric mill that runs at several hundred RPM. It's a lot of physics and biology involved in the whole thing in order to really understand what you're doing and the effect of what you are doing is going to have in the fermentation and also in the distillate and the final product. So it took a lot of reading. It took a lot of asking questions. It took a lot of time, a lot of heartbreak, and a lot of very wonderful feelings when I finally figured something out and I was jumping around.
I wish I saw pictures of that, or at least some video and TikTok. That would have been fun.
I there should be some pictures from when I started. And actually, Ramon, who you met when we were setting up, he actually tried some of my very, very first batches. They were 20, 40 liter batches that I did at first, and they tasted like jet fuel. They were awful. So it took a lot of time to sort of figure things out and come and make the product come around.
What you speak to regarding there's such a technical side to make the Bacanora, to go through the fermentation and distilling. Like you said, you went to Oaxaca, but where you are, it's a totally different terroir climate experience. And I think to these smaller producers that have been going back ages and, through their family. And I think for them, they started, and it wasn't about the technical process. They just knew through the harvest and fermentation and distillation, it was just something that was handed down. It's just a different mindset, isn't it?
It totally. It's like I love to cook, so I think what some of those more traditional distillates, they follow a recipe like that is handed down from their ancestors, and they do beautiful things. I mean, and they keep the culture alive, and that's part of the culture. That transcendence of families that keep making agave spirits is what turned it into this whole cultural beautiful thing that we have now. So all my respect to them. And since I didn't have an ancestor to hand me down a recipe, I had to go about and figure out what I wanted to achieve, and then figure out how to achieve it. So it's been lots of fun. It started as a hobby, and I dedicated a lot of time into this whole thing in order to make something that I would really enjoy drinking, because it was intended to stay in my house and never to, like, I never meant it to be sold anywhere. And it was a hobby, and then it turned into all of this, and it's surreal to me. It's like a dream.
All right, it's a hobby, and now
Yes.
it's a business. What was the switch that flipped that you said, we got to make this a business. We got to share this with the world?
Mom and dad, they knocked on my door one night and said, "Hey, you got something here. We think it's something that it's a beautiful, it's good, and we could probably." They asked me if I wanted to turn it into a business, if I was interested, and they jumped on board financially, and then my sisters as well. So it's a family effort, to tell you the truth. And mom, dad are involved, and I have three sisters. They're involved as well. And that they were the switch, really. I kept it as a hobby. I sold some of it, like out the door of my house sometimes, but only to close friends and stuff like that. And they were the ones that pushed me, that like to take the first few steps to achieving this that we have now.
Volume as a hobbyist is much different than volume as a business. I'm imagining, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Are you using that same still, or have you graduated to larger stills?
No, we have larger ones, not very large. They hold 2,000 liters each, and but it's pretty much the same equipment that I started with, same design and everything, just a little bit bigger, and now we are expanding. We have expanded. We planted more agave a couple of years ago and last year, and then we started expanding. We built more underground pits. We roast our agaves in underground pits that look like a barbacoa pit. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's like a cylinder that is dug in the ground. It's lined with volcanic rock and clay, and that holds about 2 tons per roast. And I like to keep them in the smaller side of like a smaller side of the spectrum in regards to tonnage and everything that I can cook at a time, because I can control the roasting process a lot better. And I'm very particular on the temperature of the roasting pit, the amount of time that I roast the agaves for, in order to achieve different things and different flavor profiles. And also, I'm very particular with especially with the fermentation process. That's where things are made or they get broken. So there it's smaller batches, if you will, but I'll I'll I do the batch several times a week. So that's what produces the volume.
It's craft, and you
Yes.
are putting your heart and soul into each roast, into each fermentation. We're talking about open air fermenters, open air fermenters.
No, I have them in a room. I mean, there's not a lid on them, but they're in a room in order for the weather not to affect the yeast colonies as much. And also, well, the weather, of course, is the temperature, but also the humidity. And then it needs a certain air. I keep a certain airflow in there because the CO2 can build up in the room and can be harmful. But yeah, it's very it's a controlled climate control. Well, I don't know how to word that, but
You
basically it's
worded
a
it
room
perfectly to me.
that it's we, instead of using paint, we use salt, calcium, and lime. It's a mixture in order not to have any algae, fungi, or bacterial colonies growing in the walls, because there's a certain humidity in the room, and it's a little bit warm, and it's perfect for any microorganism to develop. So I don't want anything contaminating my batches, other than anything growing in the fermentation bins, other than the yeast colonies that we chose to grow in.
What have been some of those aha moments, other than your family and friends seeing what you're doing as a hobbyist and appreciating what you're doing? What have been some of those aha moments for you now as your Kilinga Bacanora has made it out to the world?
Well, I was pretty much lost in the woods, uh, like sales wise. I knew that the way to go was to sell in the United States, but I didn't know how to do it. And we ended up going to a festival in San Diego, the San Diego Spirits Festival, and then and it sort of clicked further when I saw a big line of people trying wanting to have the Bacanora straight, and also we were fixing tamarind margaritas at the time, and it was a big long line, and I was like, wow, this. I mean, that's when I first that's probably the first time I really believed that I was onto something good. Before that, when I was reading through a bunch of stuff, and my destiny wasn't going where I wanted it to, and when you distill it, it sort of distills backwards from from what when you distill grain spirits per se. Like the methanol, it's in the tails, like the bottom side of the spectrum, rather than being most of the methanol on the on the heads or the foreshots. And so those things, finding out those things were like, wow, it clicked and it started developing into this. I actually got news a few days ago that our Bacanora Blanco got a double gold medal in the New York Spirits competition. So the New York World Spirits competition, I think that's the full name of the event. And that was pretty freaking cool.
Well, congratulations. And I appreciate you sharing that. Look, I always say this because those listening to the podcast that are driving in their car, or maybe running on the treadmill or whatever they're doing, they can hear it, but to be able to see your face light up and the joy that you just showed from being this hobbyist Bacanora distiller to something that now is being received and getting awards, that's huge and that's wonderful. I'm imagining that we have three expressions here: the Blanco, the Silvestre, and the Reposado. Which one should we start with first?
The Silvestre.
Silvestre.
Yes.
So explain to me or let me understand, what is a Silvestre? Wow, your bottle's a lot bigger than mine.
I'm gonna pour a little bit for myself.
I want you to.
And the best way to have it is slightly chilled, like you would a white wine. And well, Silvestre, what's special about it is that it's first and foremost that it's made with younger agaves that are around 7 years old. So the expression here is to project that youth, that liveliness of when a plant is very alive and vibrant, and then there's sometimes when during the rainy season and the spring that those plants coexist with a lot of wildflowers in the desert, and I wanted to project those floral notes, that playfulness, what I get to see in the desert, that playfulness in the color palette of the desert. I wanted to sort of project that into your nose and the palate through this expression.
I am just, as you're explaining that and talking about the wildflowers and the youthfulness of the agave, I'm just nosing this, and I get a lot of salinity to it and pepper notes to it. I also get this citrus note as well, and this, I just call it juiciness, because to me, when I enjoy an agave spirit, to me that's like the umami. It should be it's juicy. It's something there that I can't explain it.
That salinity, that's where I talked about at the beginning, that it's important to mention that we're very close to the Sea of Cortez, the Gulf of California, and that ocean breeze that comes in gives it a particular nose, and the pepperiness is it tastes like a green bell pepper, sort of that like the capsicum that it has. It's sort of present there. And actually, when you're harvesting agave, if you don't wear gloves and long sleeves, the juice that sprays when you cut the leaves off, it'll be itchy on your skin. It sort of irritates it. So it has a sort of that nose as well to it. That green liveliness of the agave.
As we're talking, and this finally gets a chance to open up, yeah. I almost like, I know we talk about the green pepper, but I almost get this dust as if you were cracking fresh black pepper. Yeah. I get that on the nose, but then this wonderful, and I love it. So, I think we share this desire for agave spirits, this smoky nature to this that kind of competes or mellows together with the pepper note that I get.
I wanted to make it a point that the smoke is just an ingredient of a whole array of different notes. It's these pits that I was talking about, the underground pits, are heated with mesquite wood. So it has that rather than being very strongly smoky, it's like a touch of smoke, like when you barbecue a steak on mesquite charcoals or something, sort of that touch of smoke that complements and makes everything come together.
This is so wonderful on the palate. It's like the Lafroig of Mexico, of just this. It's this unctuous smokiness. It's almost a mouth quenching, thirst quenching smokiness that you get. And I'm curious because through transparency, this is the first Bacanora that I've ever tried or I've enjoyed. And you talk initially about, well, you didn't care for Bacanora. It wasn't something that you enjoyed, but now you're a distiller of Bacanora. What was it? I know you talked a little bit about it, but talk a little bit more about what changed your mind for Bacanora.
Well, I had one that I really enjoyed. It was touch floral. The smoky note was not as pungent, and also the alcoholic sensation in the palate was very well balanced, and that's when that something clicked, and when the more I thought about it, I said I could probably do as good as a job as this gentleman did, whoever made that Bacanora that I had. And then after I learned more and more, I said, okay, maybe I can do something that's really pleasing to my palate, like make tailor-made suits. And it just I started developing on the notes that I really enjoy on drinks, and you sort of search for them in the agave, and after almost 15 years now, it's something that I very much enjoy drinking, and it's my favorite drink. It's made because it's made for me, especially to my palate.
That's the best way to do it. Look, and I can say I feel like you made this for me because there's so many characteristics that I appreciate in what I'm drinking today, and there's this wonderful honey creaminess to it. And I guess if you start to think about honey and the wildflower component, that's some of those characteristics that I'm really enjoying. It could be seasonally, it could be affected differently, but there's so much here to take out of this. There's so much complexity and so much character to this. And I just, I'm picturing you on your ranch, man, just sitting out there watching the fields and the sunrise and the sunset, and just enjoying. And look, this is your Silvestre. This is the young stuff. We haven't gotten into your more mature agave yet.
Mm-hmm. And before I was asked what was my goal with this, and my goal has and always will be to make the most elegant expression that I can make to be appreciated by my palate. I love it that it's smooth, elegant, and it just it involves your taste buds, and it just keeps blooming and developing in your mouth after you've drank it, and it just lingers, and it's like a perfume that lingers a little bit in your mouth, but it doesn't linger too much, because at the end it just dries out and leaves your mouth ready and wanting more.
I think that's the thirst quenching aspect of it. Yes. I want to sip, I want to enjoy and be intoxicated by the different characteristics of it, and just repeat the process. Nose, sip, Repeat.
Yes. Cheers.
Cheers. All right. I'm expecting we're going to go to the Blanco next. Yes.
The Blanco, yes.
Now, what are you're talking 15 years? This is something that's been a passion of love and desire for yourself. What is it? You could have stopped at the Silvestre. You could have just gone to why the continuation of growth is just the feeling that this is what you have to do or want to do.
Yeah, first the Blanco was the first one that I ever made. That espresso is the first one that I came about. And after I had the Blanco really where I wanted it to be, there was somebody that brought into the distillery some younger agaves that weren't as mature. And that's when I started. They were already harvested. I started playing around with them. And that's when I started to develop the Silvestre. With the Blanco, the main difference is that the Blanco is only made with agave capon. Agave capon is the agave that has reached its peak of maturity. So it's ready to reproduce and bloom and die off. And that's when the agave, the piña, the agave heart, has the most amount of starch and sugar in this whole in the whole life period that it has. So there are agaves that are in between 9 to 12 years old, and they're very starchy, very present. Those agave notes are not as they are raised, not as varied, but the ones that are there are very, very present. This is more of like what a tradition. It's closer to what a more traditional Bacanora would taste, with the of course the balance in the smoke, the alcoholic sensation, and it's a little bit more alcoholic. This is 84 ABV, a little bit higher, in order to accentuate those notes that the more mature agave wants to give. It's the smoke. There's toasty notes in there. I roast the agaves for a longer period of time at different temperatures to a lower temperature in order to caramelize some of those sugars that are produced during the cooking process.
So one of the things that I was trying to find that my nose picked up was like a ripe banana, like this green banana, or just this banana note. I don't know. So some of these things that I may pick up, I don't know if anybody's ever said, or that's what you've picked out of it.
Yeah, the green. When you say green banana, the banana when it's green, it's mostly starch. When it ripens, some of that starch turns into sugars. That's why it's sweet. This is very the agave as well is very starchy when we harvest it at that point, and that shines through in this drink. That sort of starchy, toasty. There's a sweet hue in the background there because when all of those starches, when you roast them, they'll turn into simple sugars that are able to ferment.
There's so much tropical. There's like a tropical note to the nose and the palate. The flavor of this, I'm like kind of lost for words, because I think, yeah, we've had tequila, we've had Sotal, we've certainly had mezcal, and now we can add, Bacanora to our repertoire of things to enjoy. But this is so nuanced to what you created. We're just enjoying, you and I just look at each other sipping and we're smiling. I feel like I get this moment with you where one of your kids did really well at something and you get to be the proud father, and all you do is just watch and smile. And I get to be there for that. So that is so cool.
Yeah, it's something that I'm when you mentioned that you perceived that there was a lot of heart into this. Oh boy, it's been miles and miles and miles hard in this. So it's been a huge effort from learning everything from scratch. I had no idea on how to grow agaves. I had no idea on how to distill anything, let alone fermenting or distilling anything. And it's been a long. I mean, it's easy to say, but it's been 15 years and I'm still learning a lot. And I'm very satisfied of the with the path I've been going down on. So it's something that I really enjoy. I enjoy talking about it. And yeah, I enjoy that the looking at the expression on people's faces when they don't know what to expect, or maybe you're expecting to have something similar to a tequila or a mezcal or a sotol, and then you're hit with this very different, pleasant thing that sort of throws you it throws you off a little bit.
Can people come down to your ranch, to your plantation, to your distillery and come and visit with you? Or do they get to see the
Yes,
whole Rodrigo experience of what you do?
definitely yes. There's a lot of friends that ask me to take them there. Ramon puts together sometimes groups of people, and they go there and we get to talk and walk through the fields, and they get to enjoy the Bacanora, sometimes out of like straight out of the still, which some people like it having a drink at 140 ABV. That's not my cup of tea, but some people want to do that, and so they get to look at the whole process. They want to try that. We'll let them try it. And yeah, they get to take a bunch of pictures with when the pits are light up, and I mean the pits are lit up, and they get to see the bottling process and everything. So it's still exciting for me, and I'm used to being there, and I can't imagine what it would feel to look at all of that like the first time you look at it. So it's exciting and exciting. People like going there, and Ramon makes a great experience for whoever visits.
You talked about the festival in San Diego, and
Yeah.
you spoke to making these tamarind margaritas. Um,
Uh-huh.
I'm hard pressed right now to want to add anything to the two expressions that we tried because they're so delicious on their own. Besides, what are some of the cocktails that you've put together, or that you're sharing with your friends and your customers?
Oh, I have some friends that are great with cocktails. They actually have a book. It's called How to Make Better Cocktails. Very simple, and so they came up with a paloma that's called a fancy paloma. And then instead of using like the regular key lime for the acidity, they'll substitute it with calamansis. Those little bitter, there's a little bit bitter, sour, and very um, the smell of the peel, the oil in the peel is very present. So they came up with a paloma with calamansis and also with grapefruit. There's another version of it, which is wonderful. With the silvestre, they came up with a martini that has a cucumber ribbon, just a cucumber ribbon, and that changes the whole game. It gives it a different layer of freshness, and it's very chilled and it's wonderful as well. With they've done like an espresso martini with the reposado, and which is very lovely as well. It's not too sweet, and it's just a little bit more refreshing and bright. That's off the top of my head. That's the ones that I can remember. I'm oh I know my friend Sebastian made a Manhattan once, and you know what? The one that I most enjoyed was a hibisco disco margarita.
Okay,
It's like a
hibiscus.
hibiscus, like a flower infusion with elderflower liqueur, a touch of that, lemon, and maybe something else. But that's freaking amazing. Really good. That's the kind of drink that you keep on drinking. It's very enjoyable. Like on a hot summer day with that, it's perfect. On the beach, on a boat, wherever.
Where can people find your Bacanora, the Kalinga Bacanora?
In the United States, we are present in several cities in the state of California and also New York, Jersey, and Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania.
And yes, and I think we have some in Chicago and Denver specifically, if I remember correctly. But yeah, we're sort of going different places, but one step at a time because we are still a very small production. I mean, still we're a small distillery, and our output is not huge. So we are very careful that whenever we go into a store or a restaurant or a bar, that they give us the opportunity to have us in their menu or their bar or their stores. We want to make sure that we have product to send them again when they run out.
Do you have the ability to do a third-party shipping? Do you ship to other areas? Can you ship to people's houses or not just yet?
Oh, yes. In our website, kilingabacanora.com, there's like a buy now button, and that goes to a third party and they can be shipped to your house. Yes, definitely.
Perfect. All right. I poured some of the reposado.
Okay.
And I've held off at least to just the two previous expressions have been so wonderful. I didn't want to rush into this just yet.
Well, this is an expression that I didn't want to make because as you said, the expressions without the wood were I was pretty fascinated with them, and I didn't want to go into the woodsy, sweeter expression that the wood can provide. But well, my friend Ramon, which I mentioned him before, he convinced me to go ahead and develop reposado. And it took me a very long time. I took my merry time and sort of went about it like you would ensemble a new dish. It's like, okay, this is our star of the show, and I sort of seasoned it with different barrels. There's bourbon barrels involved here, that ex-bourbon barrels and ex Colombian rum barrels that's why if you have it, you can have a little bit of like a tropical spice in there. It's very playful, aromatic, and it just blooms. And also when you have it, you get all those notes, and then the agave note hits you in the like at the end, and it really does the job of letting you know that this is an agave spirit.
Everybody has a recognizable theme to what they do.
Mm-hmm.
Your intention or what people can expect from Kalinga Bacanora, to me, at least some of what I get is there's sweet, there's spicy, there's smoky, but there's also this tropical note that kind of threads through everything else. Are there components that you say, you know what, if people drink this, they're going to know it's a Kalinga Bacanora because of these things?
Yes, definitely. And those tropical components that you mentioned, um, is because we are in the southern part of the state. We're few miles from the state of Sinaloa, which is not a desert at all. So we are where the mountains start growing apart from the sea level. So it is still the Great Sonoran Desert, but it's when the desert's giving way to the subtropical climate of the of northern Sinaloa, and and we're close to Sinaloa in Chihuahua, actually. So it's a very specific geographical location that we have, and we get all of that. And yes, what I want to people to distinguish from this is those playful floral agave notes that you get. They're always going to be present in every SKU. And in the back of this reposado, you can also perceive some of those notes, and that's like the signature of our product.
There's I sip this, and the first it's like this hot butter that coats your mouth.
Yes.
Then you get the sweetness. I mean, and not that there's the saltiness of butter, but just the texture of you took hot butter. And the first thing that I wanted to do is I want to pair this with lobster. I want lobster and bacanora, and I just want to eat the lobster, the salty, the briny, the sweetness of the lobster, and I want to sip this and see how they, just complement one another.
Last night, I actually flambéed some salmon fillets with bacanora, and that earthy umami sort of note that it has remained, and some of the spices on top of the fillet got a little bit charred with the fire, and that turned out great. It was great. It's also great to cook with, and to flambe stuff. I put it in sometimes in salsa, like fresh salsa, to make tacos, burritos, whatever. And that touch of a little touch of alcohol, that smoky, earthy, salinity, like those saline notes there. They play well with food. You can pair it with it. You can cook with it as well.
When are you releasing your cookbook?
That's probably maybe a couple of years when I get a little bit of time to sit down and write about it, I guess.
Ramon's already starting working on that. He's got that going right now.
He is always pushing.
Him and his really white sneakers.
Yeah.
Well, cheers to this. All those things, salud and just
Cheers.
Oh my God. This is so surprising only because of there's so many layers. When you have one and then you think you've enjoyed them all, there's something new that comes here.
And it keeps blooming. It's like eating a layer cake. You get a certain aspects of it, certain aromas and flavors, and then it keeps as your saliva starts the digestion process. That changes a little bit and gives you another note, and then it gets further digested, and then it coats your mouth and it keeps blooming, giving you different notes. So it's very layered. I really enjoy that aspect of the repo in that aspect, that it's very layered, and it is just fun to sip and just sit back and wait for the whole thing to happen.
You have 3 expressions. Are there more coming or anything else in your mind that you want to just share with anybody?
I have an añejo. I don't know. Probably I'm gonna get yelled at because it's a very, very limited production. I think we made 2,000 bottles of that this year, but it's a five-year-old añejo. I left that alone for 5 years, and that's in those barrels. There's actually that batch won a silver medal at the San Francisco World Spirits Competition. That was my very first award that I won. That was very it was exciting and moving as well. So I got really emotional.
Is there anything we haven't talked about on the podcast today, Rodrigo? Anything you want listeners to know more about you or Kalinga Bacanora?
Um, well, we didn't mention that Bacanora it has a tradition of more than 300 years in the state of Sonora. It's nothing new. It's a very traditional drink. It's not a very well known agave drink, but it's one that it has beautiful expressions. Bacanora was actually banned from 1915 to 1995. And the governor at the time banned the production. And there's a lot of families that lost some of their relatives trying to keep the tradition alive. And so there's a lot of history filled with exciting episodes and some a lot of heartbreak as well. So it's a very exciting story behind it, and from the brand is just that it's one of the few brands of agave spirits that is named after a woman, and in the women in my life are very involved in the process as well. Um, and it's a drink that it's been developed and made with a lot of passion, and it's a lot of excitement, heartbreak, and all that involves in creating something beautiful. So I strive to make the best quality that my knowledge permits me, and also to project the most elegant expression that I can have with the agave that I work, and into and it used to be only for me, and now it's for all of you guys as well.
You speak to the history, and I wonder if over all that time, had it not been prohibited to be produced, would we be drinking more Bacanora? Would it be more recognized, at least in the United States? And you talk about the parallel of that not being able to be produced over the same time of Prohibition and things that got lost during Prohibition. I wonder if we would all be having more of a knowledge, and maybe it would be more prominent than some things. But I'll tell you what, there's that opportunity where you seize to make something and bring your take to the world that people can embrace what you do now and say, wow, if this is what Bacanora is, or this is what Bacanora should be, your stamp on that is all that you want it to be, that quality, that personality, that character. I think we couldn't ask, and I know probably there are other people making Bacanora, so not slating them, but I think you're a wonderful ambassador to the history and the production of it, and what you do, because these have just been so enjoyable that I am grateful for that you've made this not a hobby, but a business. So thanks, Mom and Dad, for saying, hey, Rodrigo, we're going to need more agave.
Yeah, hopefully. That's the kind of problems that we like. And
Rodrigo,
I didn't mention as well that we grow from seed to bottle, so we don't use clones or hijuelos, which are the shoot-offs of the root system of a mother agave. We grow them from seed. We also have we partnered with a local university to have FOBADES, which is like a bat conservation program. So we have a program that we leave a certain amount of agaves to bloom after several years in order to feed the bats that migrate from the southern United States to central Mexico. And they're feed specific, so they only feed on agave flowers along the route. And so we're into that. We are We do a lot of conservation. The team in Kilinga tells me that I don't mention that enough, because to me that's second nature. But it seems that a lot of people don't do it, so that's why I'm mentioning that. For the mesquite that we use in the fire pits, I started a mesquite grove, and we pruned those mesquites rather than cutting them off. And so it's a whole system behind the Kilinga brand in order to achieve it and be able to sustain the brand without harming the land, because we take care of the land before we take anything from it. So I've been taught to do that since I was young, and we keep on doing that, because it's a beautiful thing to go into the ranch and see the wildlife just blooming, and the natural flora being around, and also it gives a lot of that coexists with the agave, and a lot of that also seasons and flavors the agaves that we grow at the ranch.
All this time, each time you mention something, it gets better. How you treat the land, the environment, the process, the understanding that if you don't take care of everything around you, then this can't be produced. So you're really thinking about everything along the way.
It's because if your surroundings are not doing well, you cannot enjoy yourself or the fruits of your labor, because everything around you is not well. So everything has to be well in order for me to enjoy this and enjoy the fruits of my labor.
Well, I'm grateful that we got a chance to enjoy you and the fruits of your labor today. Thank you for bringing Kalinga Bacanora to us, and thanks for being a friend of Fermented Adventure. We can't wait to continue to share this with friends and enjoy this, and maybe one of these days we'll find our way down, and Ramon will set us up, and we'll help in the roasting, and we'll come visit you in person.
That would be great. You should. Let's get that going.
Thanks again. I really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you having me here. Cheers.
Cheers.
Enjoy.